our Sip and Saga Society's monthly video episode, The Little Sips. Today, we're touching on a very broad subject, space. My name is Karina, and I am one of your hosts. And joining us today, we have the regular crew, Randy,
Hey.
Christina,
Okay, hello.
and Greg.
Hey,
Sadly, this is Christina's last episode before she goes on maternity leave. So I am definitely going to miss her. Christina has been by my side since I started this podcast almost 3 years ago, and I am so excited for you and this journey of becoming a family of five. And I'm super happy for Aspen to get here, but I'm already ready for you to come back. So, I mean, like, take your time, but we are always here for you with open arms, and you will definitely be missed.
Yeah, it's
But
gonna be weird being
yeah,
on the listening side of things, but I'm excited to listen in and hear what you guys have for the next few months. I actually turned 33 weeks today, so it's crazy to think only 6 more weeks and she'll be here.
it is
Fast.
definitely gonna fly
Yeah.
by. Yeah. Because I thought I thought it was going to take forever to get here, and here we are. But the episode topic for today is space because Randy and I felt that it paired well with our book club book of the month, Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. Our book club is held on the last Thursday of the month on Discord and is available to any membership tier on our website, sipandsaga.online. Now that we are done with all of the announcements for today, unless Randy has any that I'm not aware of, I like to check.
No, you got him, Ma.
We have the most important question of the day because I live in the desert and I'm consistently dehydrated. What are you sipping, Greg? You said you had a cool beer and I need to see it.
okay. So this is from Urban South Brewery. It's called Flamingo Wings. So it's got all these little flamingos on there.
I always love the cans.
It seemed like a good spring beer, but it's a West Coast double IPA.
It looks like a shirt you'd get at Dillard's for
It
Grandpa.
Yeah.
does.
It's just flamingos on like turquoise.
Yeah. But when I think flamingos, I think like Florida, right? And that's where Cape Canaveral is, so it fits with space.
Oh my God,
Okay,
you're right.
not to jump out of turn, but I am just also very excited that we're doing this the same month that like NASA's doing the whole Artemis 2, and you guys are all looking at me
Yeah, I was
blankly.
gonna say, what's that? Because I don't
Oh,
know.
I forgot. I forgot. No, I'm an embarrassment to the people of NASA that I know, but yeah, I've heard the name and I've heard it's a
okay.
big deal.
Okay, so like this week they're saying NASA's saying that there is like a better chance now that they're going to be launching Artemis 2, which is going to be manned space travel to the moon. So we're like having this conversation. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about astronauts today, and I've been watching the news today and I'm just really excited to be so relevant, you know?
Also, Randy and I planned this forever ago, so I love that it just kind of landed at the perfect time.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's my
Beautiful.
point is that we've had this theme planned for like 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Wild. Well, and then it's crazy because I didn't know how much of the work had been done because of the government shutdowns that won't stop happening. Because if they can't work on it, then how are they supposed to get there? And also, would not Trump love that the most to be the president in office when we go back to the moon?
He does have the Space Force now, so
The next
They
you know.
have
step's to
mugs,
build a
guys.
casino on the moon.
Shut up, Greg. Because we
I
can all
thought
see it. It'd be so dumb.
I
Anyway,
thought
anyway.
for sure it'd be a golf course, but okay.
Oh, why not both?
Lunar
It can be
lunar
a
mini golf,
resort.
right? Like
Whoa, lunar mini golf, that's a $10 million idea, Greg.
Okay. Oh, damn it. I was going to ask Christina, but she's snacking. All right. Randy, what are you sipping?
I have a Sprite today. I know. I stopped by and I did something I wasn't supposed to do. And so I got a Sprite while I was at it.
There's so many questions now.
Honestly, I'll tell you because I don't really care. I glutened myself because I really wanted this a specific sandwich and I was like, I just am gonna go get this sandwich. But the way that the meat and the cheese are, it's better with a Sprite. I like a good like lemony lime
Understandable.
taste.
Hmm.
I was gonna say, you got a pair. You got a pair.
Hmm.
All of our
That's true.
reactions were so, all of us were like,
Gasp.
I
wait a
know.
wait a minute.
It's just me. I'll just be suffering later. It's fine.
Ugh, I know that. Yeah. Okay,
Sometimes
Christina,
it's worth
now.
it
Oh,
though.
it is. Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes it is.
Yeah, it's like hella rainy. Like it was so rainy today, a fish would have drowned. I swear, I thought that it was like a swimming pool dumping outside. And I was like, I'm not really feeling up to to being anything but lazy. I'm gonna get this sandwich and I'll deal with the consequences.
Honestly, yeah, treat yourself for sure.
I'm all for good food. Everyone
Hmm.
deserves to eat good food. But I'm drinking Dr. Pepper, y'all already know.
Thank God.
Y'all already know.
If you were drinking something different, I don't know if I could take it. It's too early in the evening for that. Oh
I
yeah,
should
then there's
have
me.
I should have had a second drink
I
just to
thought
mess with
you
y'all.
I thought you were gonna have a mocktail, didn't you say, Christina?
No, I think Karina was gonna have one.
I have two
Oh,
Oh,
actually.
you have
you have
two?
to.
I
Oh,
have
tell us,
two.
girl. Tell us what you got.
I have a Little Saints old fashioned. It's in this cute little container. It's an orange can. It's like
Oh,
Oh, that is
very
really
Art
cute.
Deco, I feel like.
that's
And it's very
cute.
small. Um yeah, I'm very curious about it. But it says powered by mushrooms. So we'll see about that. And
Obsessed
my
with
other one,
mushrooms.
I
You can
and
see part of them right here. My mushroom posters.
I was not intentional with the mushroom thing. I just am now noticing it that I'm actually reading the label. But the other one is from Mocktail Club. It's Jalisco Passion Fruit. And it's just a really cute white can with some orange on it. We'll see how
Nice.
it goes. Yeah, I'm not drinking this month, so I'm like, okay. I do like to try the mocktails because if my body doesn't do well with alcohol, and if you can find a drink that is gonna make you feel nice while also just not hurting your knees in the morning, why not? Treat yourself however you can, whatever works for you. Anyway, I was really unsure about what order to do our episode in because apparently I honestly thought space was going to be a funner topic, but no. Randy's story is going to make us mad. My story is going to make us sad. And then Greg said, "You can choose what you want to feel, so take that with a grain of salt." I don't know what it means either. We're all just here. The theme is space, and we just tell a story that has to do with that theme. Today, we're going to change it up and have Christina doing some fun facts in between our stories. And I think that will be a good palate cleanser from all of the emotions we'll be feeling today. Yay! When I edit this later, I will make sure to add some photos that make us all feel a little bit better through the trauma. Anywho, um, I decided that I want to be sad first and then angry and then see what happens with Greg.
I support it.
Going through the roller coaster of all the feels.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know how I feel about the Little Saints old fashioned. It has a weird aftertaste.
Oh, it was the cute one though.
I know.
I'm like, I was rooting for it.
I don't know what it is, but it's monk fruit juice. I can't stand monk fruit.
Oh,
It
I was
really
wondering,
unset.
like, I was like, how do you get like an old-fashioned taste without bourbon?
The initial sip was very bourbon adjacent. It wasn't like perfect, but it was like close by.
Kind of similar.
It's giving a lot of licorice tones. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't
Ugh.
like it.
I
I
don't
do
like
not care
Yeah,
for it.
licorice.
No,
that's a pass
no,
for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
out.
Too much
I'm
Jaeger
kind
in
of
high
out.
school.
I get why it was on sale at Sprouts is all I'm saying. Anywho, So I decided to cover the topic of animals in space under the misguided notion that it would be cuter than it is. It is not. It is horrible, especially if you're someone with a lot of empathy between species of animal, whatever. Anywho, but one of the concerning factors that came with the idea of space travel was whether humans would be able to survive being weightless for prolonged periods of time. As with many experiments in the world, people love to use animals as test dummies for any endeavors that may risk human lives, and space travel was no exception. Mice, monkeys, chimps, and dogs were used by scientists to initially test their abilities to launch something living into space as well as bring it back alive. As you can imagine, this was not always a successful endeavor. So I'm going to tell you a small story of the Alberts. On June 11th, 1948, a V-2 Blossom, like missile, launched from White Sands, New Mexico, carrying Albert the First, a rhesus monkey. Albert the First was one of the first of the larger mammals to be launched into space by rockets and balloons as part of an American space biology research. But there was not a lot of documentation or any fanfare, or like they didn't really put it in the news or anything, like launched monkey, maybe returned. I think I read somewhere that the monkey was like died upon return. So on June 14th, in 1949, the second V-2 Blossom was launched carrying another alive monkey from the Air Force Aeromedical Laboratory. Albert II made history by attaining an altitude of 83 miles, but he died on impact. The last V-2 Blossom monkey was launched on December 12th, 1949 at White Sands, and his name was Albert IV. Albert was a rhesus monkey that was attached to monitoring instruments, and he did well until the impact when he died. Nobody really cared or paid any attention to the way that these animals were like returning. They were just like, good luck. We forgot about that part. But the United States did not stop at Albert's when it came to monkey space sacrifices. Also, I am very like clear about how I feel about this, obviously. But on September 20th in 1951, a monkey named Yorick and 11 mice were placed on an aerobie missile flight that had traveled 236,000 feet at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. Yorick was the first monkey to live through spaceflight. Yay, go Yorick. And I don't know what happened to the 11 mice. But the United States was not the only country working on getting animals, and by extension people, into space. Soviet rocket engineer and spacecraft designer Sergei Korolev, along with a small team, would use mice, rats, and rabbits as passengers for their initial test. They eventually moved on to small dogs to gather data to design a cabin to carry a human being into space. They chose small dogs instead of monkeys because they believed them to be less fidgety. They also felt that working with dogs would be easier because it would be an easier way to create quick bonds that would be strong and ensure obedience. They also believed that the stray dogs that were able to survive in the harsh streets of Moscow must have enough survival instinct to survive through space, right? Like that makes sense. You can survive in Moscow, you can make it through space.
Sure.
You got tenacity. I like that about you. They didn't just go get random dogs from the streets. They were pretty picky. They wanted the dogs to be female because it was easier to tailor outfits for them for their toileting needs. And now I'm trying to figure out, I should have looked more into this. How did they design the doggy space astronaut suit that would like keep their excrement away from them? Anyway, I don't know how they did it.
Well, I would assume that the urine part that would be the same as any astronaut suit, right? Because that just gets recycled and then used for like cooling things and like,
Right.
the
But I think it just, yeah, it would just be easier to do it with a female dog because everything is more compact than with a male dog.
right, but the poop, I don't know. Do you think they
I don't
just
know.
like would poop and then it would go into a doggy bag, a self-tying doggy bag maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, is it a tube, a little vacuum?
A
How?
vacuum, a vacuum, God forbid.
Oh no.
That sounds horrible. A vacuum at your asshole? Jesus.
I don't know how we got here, Randy. It's all my fault. I'm sorry. But also, yeah, so the dogs had to get their space suits and it was just easier for girls. I don't know. The dogs needed to be small also, only 6 to 7 kilograms. So like 14 pounds max. And also have light colored fur so that they could see them on the camera because this is a time of darker video. This is not 2026, guys. You cannot see anything on the video. Anyway, so yeah, I was reading an article on NASA and they were like they tried to bleach some of their favorite darker hair dogs, but it didn't work. And I was like, why?
Basically, you're telling me they sent chihuahuas into space. Like that's that is in fact what I'm picturing.
It had to be the fluffiest chihuahua to survive in Moscow, Randy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's a
So on August 15th, 1951, Desik and Sagan were launched. They were the first canine suborbital astronauts and were successfully retrieved. In September of 1951, Desik and another dog named Lisa were launched, and unfortunately, the second dog flight was unsuccessful, so they did die. But the data recorder did survive. So at least they got something, some information. The next pair that they picked up were a dog named Smelaya, meaning bold, and a dog named Malishka, meaning little one. Smelaya ran away the day before the flight, but returned a day later just in time to make it for her test flight, which was successful. And I was like, you could have just left. You didn't have to go to space, but you had to come back. Anyway, during the sixth test launch, another one of the dogs ran away, and his name was Bobik. And his replacement was found. They just found another small dog near like the canteen, and they named the dog ZIB, which was a Russian acronym for quote substitute for missing dog Bobik. And I just love that idea. I thought it was hilarious. Like he's just a substitute. Anyway, ZIB and their partner was successful in their mission, and that was exciting for me because like we need some good stories up in here. Overall, the Soviet rockets would carry 9 dogs, with 3 of those dogs flying twice, which is way more than people that have flown, I think. So, I don't know. I'd never be an astronaut. It's amazing these dogs could do it and survive through that experience and not have heart attacks. Each flight carried a pair of dogs in a hermetically sealed container that was recovered by parachute. Other names of the dogs who made these flights were Bina, Dimka, Modnista, Koziavka. Because they were Russian dogs, guys, if you forgot that part. But one of the most famous of the space dogs was, quote, blasted into Earth's orbit on November 3rd, 1957. Her name was Laika, which was Russian for husky or barker, but her legal name was Kudravka, which meant little curly. Eventually, she was also given the name Mutnik by those in the United States because she was a small dog who was picked up from the streets, quickly trained, put in a metal carrier under the second Sputnik, like under the second Sputnik sphere. Nobody figured out a re-entry in, oh my God. Nobody figured out a re-entry strategy, and Laika passed away with Sputnik 2 burning up in the outer atmosphere in April of 1958. So she left in November, she comes back in April, and she burns up in the outer atmosphere.
I didn't
Anywho,
like that. I didn't like that story.
I hated that. I hated this whole thing.
I talk about
Enos,
it sometimes with the space race in my classes, and the students also hate it because it's just not a good story.
I know,
because it's
I
shit.
missed who I was like 2 minutes ago.
Damn. That's what I want to hear from my story. I wish I could go back before I lived this time. It's
Christina's like,
okay.
I'd like to charge you for that time.
I mean, same, same. I'm telling you, a lot of these stories I choose, and at the time, I think it's like, we'll have a happy time, and we were not having a happy time. Anyway, so Enos was the first chimp to orbit the Earth on November 29th, 1961, on a Mercury Atlas rocket. Originally, his mission was supposed to be 3 orbits around the Earth, but due to technical difficulties, only 2 orbits were successfully performed, which technical difficulties is not what you want to hear when you are on a rocket. Anyway, Enos did well though, and he landed in the recovery area and was picked up 75 minutes after he splashed down. His mission was the last before testing on humans oh my God. His mission was the last of the testing before human orbital flight, a mission that was accomplished by John Glenn on February 20th in 1962. Enos died of non-space related dysentery. I'm sorry, but like dysentery at the Holloman Air Force Base 11 months after his flight. I don't know how Enos contracted dysentery on the Holloman Air Force Base. I had to include that the first cat launched into space was by the French on October 18th in 1963. The cat was named Felicette and was successfully retrieved by parachute. But unfortunately, the second cat launch on October 24th was not as successful. They said like the cat had issues, and I was like, they reworded it in a way that when I read it, it made it seem like the cat just like didn't have the skill. It's a cat. Why isn't it space? I don't know. Anyway, after the American lunar landing of Apollo 11, they broadened the species they sent to space to animals including, but not limited to, rabbits, turtles, insects, spiders, jellyfish, amoebas, and algae. These tests deal with figuring out the long-term health effects of being in space on different animals, which could potentially give us signs to how it would affect us. So it's important to keep taking animals to space. And so they're looking at things like tissue development as well as mating in zero G. And that's what I learned about that.
I think like with the turtle, there's a joke in there about that being the fastest turtle ever,
Oh
because
my gosh, that's
you know
funny.
Greg, you had to say that, didn't you?
I I was thinking of that. I was like, that's arguably the fastest turtle.
It has to be. What
It has
other
to be.
turtle is faster? There was talk about watching spiders weave webs in space.
Weave
Crazy.
webs.
In space.
Can
Weave
they
Have you
even
seen
webs.
the
do it?
videos where they give them drugs like LSD and then
I've seen the
or and
Yes.
pictures.
stuff?
No, I
Yeah,
love those. Yes. Those are some fun webs.
yeah.
I mean, I do not condone giving animals drugs, though. That is.
I don't either.
No.
But I do see the differences. They do get pretty wild. I feel like some of them are really like someone gave me drugs. Like you can tell what kind of drug the animal was on. Christina, what fun facts do you have for us today?
So the first one that I have is there, it's called colliding neutron stars. And basically, one moment.
Guys, I found the timer. I mean, obviously, by the time that this is published, it will have already passed. But it's NASA's launching Artemis 2 in 21 hours.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
like
That's like
that's how
really
re
soon.
yeah, that's how relevant.
I'm
Like landing on the moon, like people are gonna do a walk again, or
So I don't think that the walk is planned,
okay.
but I think they're looking at, if I remember correctly, it was like something like a tw 12-day mission, something like that. So that doesn't seem long enough for a landing.
I saw something about how all of in my endeavor to find more space research, all of the planets can fit between here and the moon. I don't know if that's your fact, Christina,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just telling
Mm-hmm.
you. And I'm like, that's a distance, guys. That's a lot of space. I
Mm.
can't even begin to fathom that much space. Insane. Anyway. Okay, sorry, Christina.
Hello. No, you're good. Sorry, Logan just woke up from a nap and he's having a moment, but he's good. But yeah, it's about neutron stars when they collide. And on here it says like they produce gravitational waves and a bright aftermath called a kilonova, and that LIGO and Virgo announced that the first detected neutron star merger was in 2017. And ESO later reported direct evidence of like freshly made strontium, it's strontium, in the merger debris, confirming that these crashes help create heavy elements,
Is that good?
which I I don't know. But
Are we worried?
there another one is like there's a black hole jet and it basically breaks like the speed limit. So it's a supermassive black hole in the galaxy M87 and it just shoots out like jets of particle at over like 99% the speed of light. And this was according to NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory reporting. And it said that's a real object launching real materials across ridiculous distances. Like it's furious at the universe.
I don't like that I know that.
See?
What is that? What is it
I
doing?
love it. I'm excited.
I'm
Tell
like, who
me
are you?
more.
What do you want?
But yeah,
It's
those
so
are my first
strange.
two facts. But yeah, some of these are just like kind of wild because like obviously like this is happening and we have no idea that this is happening or how, close or far away. But it's great. Black holes kind of creep me out thinking about it like a little too deeply. But yeah, I thought that was crazy.
Well, I do highly recommend that black hole documentary. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. It has black hole in the title, but it was really, really good. It was amazing what they were able to that they were able to take pictures of one and see it. It's just insane.
Well, and it's crazy because like I don't know, I guess like how true, but I did read somewhere that like with black holes, like obviously as like far as humans, like if you ever, if we ever got like sucked into a black hole, like it it's pulling you apart so quickly that you don't feel it, but like you would literally be in parts before you know it, kind of thing.
Yeah, it tears you particle by particle.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that to me is
Well, what I think is
insane.
more interesting is thinking about that, but isn't it also true that time ceases to exist inside of a black hole because of its gravitational force? So
Hmm.
imagine being split into all those particles and then time done.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're still
yeah.
Okay, Randy, I'm ready to be angry.
I really was so upset when I was doing the research for this too. It was disheartening, I guess would be the best word for it. Um, so my story kind of is about the good old boys club of space exploration and the work that NASA and the United States did to keep women from achieving any of those heights. Not that that's very surprising at all. As we know in science, women's contributions are often overlooked or stolen, right? Like we know Rosamund Franklin, who was able to do pieces of DNA or figure out that there was DNA. Her scientific work was stolen by her colleagues. And we know even, I'm sure you guys have seen Hidden Figures, so it's no surprise there the work that a black female mathematician was erased from that Apollo mission. So my story tonight is going to be very much in that vein. Okay. So we're going to start in 1959-ish. Okay, so as Karina's story, time-wise, actually, it lined up better that you went first, Karina, because your missions, so those non-manned space missions, but that did have animals on and stuff like that. That all preempted a lot of what I'm going to be talking about tonight, which is that manned space exploration, where we saw, Lance Armstrong. No, that's the bicyclist. Who am I thinking of?
Neil Armstrong.
Neil.
Yeah.
Neil. There we go. Neil Armstrong. It's because I've got all the women's names in my head. I don't have room for it. So, so it's like 1959, Sputnik has happened. Russia's kind of leading the way in space exploration, and the United States is trying as hard as they can to catch up. And they start with this space program. They're going to start getting astronauts to go up and orbit in space and eventually do more things, right? NASA's still trying to figure out what direction they're going in, but it's just this brick on brick competition against Russia. And the physician that was overseeing all of NASA's program in New Mexico, it was a Dr. William Lovelace II. And he actually had some really interesting ideas about astronauts and the best people who to be astronauts. He thought that there were advantages to women physiologically that would help them when they were up in space, right? So he's thinking about how their reproductive organs are inside their body, so there's a lower chance of radiation and exposure. He's thinking about how they're smaller and lighter, so it's going to take less fuel to get them up into space, and it's going to take less food and water to maintain them once they're up there, right? There's just a lot of things that he's like, oh, it would make sense if women were the ones who were better equipped to be astronauts. And he's been put in charge of this NASA program. He had just developed this rigorous training, not training, but like um, processing and like evaluation of the astronauts physically, psychologically, and then there is a third portion that NASA does based off of their flight capabilities, right? Because one of the biggest things that you needed in order to become an astronaut was jet hours, and jet hours could only be obtained through military service, right? That's the only place that you could get jet hours. It was also not allowed for women to become pilots in the military, as they were not allowed to serve at the time. So that was the first kind of bar to entry for women in becoming astronauts, because they weren't even allowed to fly the planes that would qualify them to become astronauts. So Dr. Lovelace has just done this with all of the men. There's like 15 or so, really top-notch military guys that have been put through all of this training. Mercury 7, right? This group of men. And he's got these thoughts, these theories about women being astronauts, but he knows NASA is never going to sanction this, right? He's like, there's no way in the way that the climate is in 1960 that women are going to be perceived as capable and that men are going to want a female competitor for this position, right? Because a lot of this also was about the ego of the men that are involved in these flights, who would sabotage perhaps the opportunity or the work that's being done because they don't want to fly with a woman. So these are all concerns that are happening. So he goes and he ends up meeting this woman named Jerry Cobb. And she's this amazing pilot. She's been flying since she was 12, right? And she got her license at 18, and she was a part of this whole like group of pilots. She was trying to really invigorate women into becoming pilots and into flying. And Dr. Lovelace meets her, and he's like so impressed with her. He thinks that she could be an astronaut. He's like, I met this woman. She's an amazing pilot. She could really, do the job that we're looking for here at NASA. So he super, super secretly, like in the dead of night in 1960-ish, like brings her to his clinic in New Mexico and puts her through the physical portion of the tests that the men are given. And Jerry does so well. She does amazing. Dr. Lovelace is like, this is exactly what I was expecting to see. And he's off. He goes to Sweden where they're having some sort of like aeronautic convention. And he makes this declaration that he's able to say now that he thinks and has solid evidence that women could be better suited to be astronauts than men. And he's got this perfect example, Jerry Cobb. She becomes a huge sensation overnight, right? She gets her profile done in Life magazine. She's all over the news. It basically ends up costing her her marriage because, much like the men that we're talking about in the NASA program, she was married to a decorated fighter pilot from World War II, and he felt like she was stealing his spotlight now because she was such a sensation with Dr. Lovelace. So that's all happening. This is 1960. So he's really making headlines, right? But he still knows, based off of the reactions, that NASA's not wanting to do this, and it's really mixed on whether or not people think women even have a place in space, right? So what does he do? Super secretly, he's like, okay, I am going to get the data. He's like, we're going to do this in a direct comparison kind of way. I am going to work with Jerry. We're going to recruit about 25 women and we're going to put them through all of the same testing that the men have in secret without NASA knowing, privately funded, and we're going to see who's the best. Well, Dr. Lovelace the second did not have the money to be doing this, right? He was just a physician who was really obsessed with aeronautics. So he was like, I need to find someone who can help me with this. Enter in Jackie Cochran. Okay. Jackie Cochran at the time was in her own right a downright badass of a woman, right? She had broken the sound barrier. She was the first woman to break the sound barrier. She had grown up in poverty and then created her own business and became, quite financially stable, if not wealthy, on her own, working in beauty products. When she met a man, married wealthy, picked up flying, and then never looked back, right? So she was like this larger than life character, and was really good friends with Dr. Lovelace. So he calls her and he's like, listen, I want to get women into space, right? And I need your help to do it. And she's hearing this and she's thinking, oh man, this is my chance to do another thing. This is my chance to be another first, maybe the first woman in space, maybe the first woman to pilot a ship, a spacecraft into space. I'll absolutely fund this and I want to be tested. Now, I don't know necessarily that she says that explicitly, but she does end up being selected as one of the 25 women to be tested. Um, and so Jerry Cobb is really the one that's in charge of doing this recruitment. And with all of her exposure, they had already been getting petitions from women across the country. Notably, and I wanted to throw it back to one of Greg's episodes, Women in World War II, we know about the WASPs, right? So, Greg, if you just want to give a brief recap of what the WASPs are.
Yeah, sure. They're these women who were recruited as part of an auxiliary group to the Air Force to be test pilots, to train American like male pilots who would then go off to fight in World War II. And they were phenomenal women who are only, really in the last few decades getting the recognition that they deserve for the role that they played as like flight instructors and doing, a few of them died running, flying experimental aircraft and stuff like that.
These were amazing women who had this extensive skill set that was, once World War II was over, essentially completely shut down, right? These women didn't really have a recourse for commercial piloting or going about and continuing their work in this way. So many of those WASPs, which one of which was Jackie Cochran herself. She was a WASP in that division. So many of these women were like writing and wanting to, let Dr. Lovelace know that they were available if he was really interested in getting this up and running. So Jerry narrows it down to these 25 women, and they reach out, right? So there is a lot of different criteria that does have to be met. So they needed to have not maybe not extensive amounts of flight time, right? So for the astronaut training, you needed about 1,500 hours. They were willing to move on that, but none of these women had less than the standard, right? So they were willing to like change some of those, knowing that women were not given the opportunity to get flight hours like that. So like obviously they had to waive the jet flight hours because no woman was allowed to fly a jet. Right? But they still had to have backgrounds that would enable them to, do engineering tasks or work like that. They had to be 5'11" or less. Um, and they needed to really be able to push that frontier, right? It was a lot of gumption, I think, that was needed in order to be one of these first 25 women. And Jerry was really looking for people who pushed the envelope and would be willing to really fight for this position as a female astronaut. So Dr. Lovelace gets it. It's going to be financed by Jackie Cochran and himself. And these women were put through 3 phases of testing. So there were 3 known phases of testing. And again, this was all done in secrecy. So none of these women met each other. Maybe one or two would meet each other, but they were going individually to Lovelace's clinic to do this testing. So unlike the men who were like able to all be together and cheer each other on and share tricks and tips of the trade, the women did not have that. They just had to go in and do what they could do, right? So the first test is all of the physical tests. So this is like the cardiovascular testing, and they would do all kinds of like really strange things. Like when I was reading through the accounts, they would like immobilize their bodies by injecting water that was only 10 degrees into their ear to like freeze up their ear so that they wouldn't be able to have control over their body, and then they would have to see how fast they would reorient. They were doing all kinds of crazy things like that. They like had to have an enema every morning, and they would take extensive samples from them for those things. So it was just the way that the women describe it, especially in their accounts, because many of them have been interviewed since then. It just seems like they were really down to do whatever because they were really excited about the opportunity to be considered and to do the work to challenge this like gender divide in the space race. So in that first group of women, only 13 passed. Jackie Cochran was not one of those 13. Jerry Cobb passed. There is quite a character, and she's from Oklahoma, so I really thought it was really funny. But she goes by Wally, Wally Funk. There was Irene Leverton, Jean Hickson, B. Stedman. Her name is Bernice, but she goes by B. Ree Hurl, Marianne Dietrich, and her twin sister Jan Dietrich, Myrtle Cagle, Jerry Sloan, Sarah Lee Gorlick, Jean Strumbo, and Jane Hart. And we're going to talk more about Jane Hart because she was the oldest out of all of the 13 that were selected. Astronauts were typically not supposed to have families, not supposed to have children for these missions when they were going to be chosen. She had 8 children and still was able to get like the 2,000 fly hours and make was a homemaker. She was quite an astounding woman. But those 13 women, which would become known as the Mercury 13, were moved on to the next level of testing, which was the psychological testing, which was truly the area where the women absolutely excelled. So these are like the tank deprivation, like the sensory deprivation kind of testing. This is the seeing how long you can do in certain stressful situations, in stressful environments. For the testing that they had done up until that point, specifically for the sensory deprivation tank, it was thought that no one could be in there for over 6 hours without triggering hallucinations. And oftentimes it would take as little as like the zone that most people hit was 30 minutes to 3 hours. And I say most people, I mean the men that had gone before the women, they were in that zone. Okay? These women were hitting 9 hours, 10.5 hours. They were falling asleep in the pool. NASA was pulling them out of the pool saying, "Congratulations, you made it farther than we thought anyone could without having hallucinations." Like the women were like, "This is great. This is, we're having such a good time."
I was like, they're probably like, this is the most quiet we've ever heard
They're
ever.
Yeah.
probably like, this is the longest I haven't had to put up with bullshit. Like,
No, they literally in the interviews, they do say they were like, "We found it quite nice to have a chance to just relax."
Well, and especially like they all sound like they're like you're not there because you just want to relax and stay at home. You're there to commit. So I'm sure you go-getter and a hustler. So and at this time most people were I think a lot of women were homemakers still in addition to being even today most women are in addition to being a working person, a homemaker.
Yes.
So
Yes.
and that's probably not even I'm sure they still some of them still had to work if you had this experience. Anyway, I have a lot of
Yes.
thoughts.
Wait, but you said Jane was the one that had 8 kids?
Yes.
See, for
Jane Hart.
her to do that and to get the flight hours and to pass the physical, like 8 kids, like I mean, y'all, I mean, I'm just saying, like having kids is a number on your body. Like that is amazing.
She out of the everyone, and there are quite a few that I am telling you, you guys, each one of these women individually was an absolute badass. But like Jane Hart, and again, I'm going to talk about her more here in a second, but she is just she's funny. She is just sharp as a tack. Yeah, I would have loved to have been one of those 8 kids, I think.
But I'm sure she was like, yes,
Yeah.
deprivation tank, here I am.
Yeah. So, so they're making it through. All 13 women pass phase 2, right? There's not a single one that's dropped out of the psychological testing. So now they're getting to the part where Dr. Lovelace is negotiating with the base in Pensacola, Florida, in order to obtain the jets so that the women can do their flying time. The Lovelace Foundation has sent out a notice telling them that they need to pack their bags, they need to have their flights booked, all of this stuff because they're going down and they're going to do phase 3, which is the NASA flight trial portion. This is where things start going really wrong. 5 days before they're due to be in Pensacola, every single one of these 13 women receive a telegram from the Loveless Foundation saying we regret to inform you that this had to be canceled. Why did it have to be canceled? Because the Pentagon and NASA found out that Dr. Lovelace was going to have women manning the planes. So they were finally, this was finally at the point where the big leadership of the space program is finding out what Dr. Lovelace has been testing in his study, and he is not about it, not at all. And this is now we've moved over into 1961, right? So this is already a challenging year because again, Russia is ahead of us. They have just decided that they're going to commit to landing on the moon in the next decade, right? So they're really refocusing the NASA program on getting to the moon, and they're like, women, what? We don't need to be talking about women right now. We need to be getting to the moon. Women aren't a part of this story, right? And NASA is really not about it. Specifically, the Pentagon piece. The military men are not about it. They're like, we're not bringing a woman with us. We're gonna just go ahead on our own. And the women, right, rightly so, are pissed, right? They're really upset. And Dr. Lovelace is really upset also. He's like, what the fuck? I've got the data. I am telling you that in the first two phases, these women are excelling. All we need now is for you to show what you can do with the plane, right? Like Dr. Lovelace is like, this is my work. Like, don't come at me, bro. Basically, is how he is. So they go to Washington, D.C. Joan Hart, Jerry Cobb, and Dr. Lovelace go. And they petition Lyndon B. Johnson, who is the vice president at the time, who is supposedly working on gender equity and is really pushing for equality. They're like, this is just the man to work with us to get this job done. Lyndon, can you please possibly help us? And they implore him to give them aid to finish this study out, to at least show what the women are capable of, right? Not to say that they can, in fact, become astronauts, but to just at least show what the women are capable of. And there's this whole letter that gets drafted to that effect, at the bottom of which Lyndon B. Johnson's supposed to do is sign. Instead, what he writes on the bottom is, let's end this now, Lyndon. And that's what he sends to NASA. And that effectively kills any chance of this program happening, right? At least in the way that they thought it was going to happen. And things are getting even worse now, right? So like, we've got what is his name? John Glenn, who was the first American man to orbit space, right? He basically has some really awful things to say about the women coming on board. He basically compares them coming on the spacecraft like they would take the place of the chimp that went with Russia. He calls them 90 pounds of recreational equipment. Like he's not doing anything good for the cause, for what they're working on, and it's getting the women more and more upset, and they're trying to do everything they can, again, just to prove themselves. So Jerry Cobb and Janie Hart, they go to Congress. Now, I told you that we were going to talk about her again. Jane Hart actually at this time was the wife of the Michigan senator, one of the Michigan senators. So she's like, oh, we're gonna burn this place down, basically. She's like, if they're gonna act like this and they're gonna say this shit, we're gonna go and we're gonna fight for this. We're gonna do our thing. So I told Karina already that I was gonna be long tonight because I'm gonna read to you the statement that she reads to Congress, okay? Because I just think it's so good. Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much for letting me appear here today. The subject at hand is certainly one of my favorite ones. It will perhaps come as no surprise to you that I strongly believe women should have a role in space research. In fact, it is inconceivable to me that the world of outer space should be restricted to men only, like some sort of stag club. I am not arguing that women be admitted to space merely so that they won't feel discriminated against. I am arguing that they be admitted because they have a very real contribution to make. Now, no woman can get up and seriously discuss a subject like this without being painfully aware that her talk is going to inspire a lot of condescending little smiles and mildly humorous winks. But happily for the nation, there have always been men like the members of this committee, who have helped women succeed in roles that they were previously thought incapable of handling. 100 years ago, it was quite inconceivable that women should serve as hospital attendants. Their essential, frail, and emotional structure, it was argued, could never stand the horrors of a military dressing station. Most of them would faint at the first bloody bandage. They wouldn't be able to keep the records straight, and anyway, it was somehow indecent for a woman to be among all those soldiers, wounded or not. Well, the rest of the story is altogether familiar to you. The women were insistent. There was a shortage of men to do the job, and finally it was agreed to allow women to try it, provided there were middle-aged and ugly. Ugly women presumably having more strength of character. I submit, Mr. Chairman, that a woman in space today is no more preposterous than a woman in a field hospital 100 years ago. And I further submit that the venture would be equally successful, although this time there should be a more realistic list of qualifications for the candidates to meet. I wonder if anyone has ever reflected on the great waste of talent resulting from the belated recognition of women's ability to heal. Before 1862, there must have been thousands of women with innate nursing ability who might have helped save countless lives if only they had been allowed to. But in this scientific field, no one recognized what women could do because they were never permitted to try. It seems to me a basic error in American thought that the only time women are allowed to make a full contribution to a better nation is when there is a manpower shortage. Consequently, women are discouraged from developing their talent and education fully because it seems they will have so little occasion to use them. I correspond regularly with several college co-eds who are in the top 10% of their class. They are science students, and is there anyone here today who will argue that our nation doesn't need scientists in practically unlimited numbers? Yet many times I sense a tone of discouragement in their letters. They see so many obstacles to the realization of their hopes of a scientific career. It is a known fact, for example, that in spite of population growth and acute need, there are fewer engineering students graduating now than 10 years ago. So why must we handicap ourselves with the idea that every woman's place is in the kitchen, despite what her talents and capabilities might be? Now I, like most women, have been blessed with a very happy marriage. I have 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls, a demonstration, I think, of the impartiality that I believe should be accorded to the sexes. But equality in numbers is not enough. I should hope that they will also have equality of opportunity to use their minds and talents where they will make the greatest contribution. If the girls elect to be homemakers, excellent, provided the choice is not dictated by discrimination in all other careers. I strongly suspect that not a few women are herded into the career of marriage, a career that fails because it is one for which they happen to have little talent. And I think that our society should cease to frown on the woman who seeks to combine family life with a career. Time and again, it has been proven that this can be successfully done. Our affluent society, after all, has provided so many household aids that the intelligent, energetic housewife can find many hours to devote to other useful purposes. Let's face it, for many women, the PTA is just not enough. So she says she has another paragraph here, but it's not really relevant. I'm just going to skip down to now. I hope you understand that I am not trying to get all women out of the kitchen. I don't want to be the Susan B. Anthony of the space age. The number of women who would be qualified for and interested in space travel would be limited. Above all, I don't want to downgrade the feminine role of wife, mother, and homemaker. It is a tremendously fulfilling role. But I don't think either that it is unwomanly to be intelligent, to be courageous, to be energetic, to be anxious, or to contribute to human knowledge. I just think we would be making a serious mistake if we assumed that women just have no contribution to make to space exploration. I think we would be making a serious mistake if we were not willing to at least research the possibility that they could make a contribution. Thank you.
Damn,
Okay.
Perfect,
Randy. I get why
Jane.
you had to read it. Yep.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it
Yeah.
was so long, but it was so good. I was like, girl, yes, you go.
Her speech makes me less angry about the rest, like prior what you just told me. Because I was like, as you were saying everything, I was like, oh, now I see why we're mad. I get it. I'm mad too. But like, I don't know, to put things like how she put it in her words and just the how intellectual she is, like it's almost like a not a kill him with kindness, but like kind of. It's like
She took the
she,
high road.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And I absolutely adore that.
It was really beautiful. Like yeah, she's an artist. I want that quote like on a sweater or something because I'm like I love that.
The women can be like,
hmm
I know.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
would want to flip
unwomanly.
tables after that. I'd be like, I can do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was also like I said, she was so funny. Like one of the questions that they would get is like why should women be like what role do women have in the space race? Like why does a woman need to go to space? And the answers always range from, well, why does a man need to go to space to, kind of more the justifying it. And her response was my favorite because she goes, I have 8 kids. I just want to get away. And she was like, you have 8 kids. You'd want to go to space too.
I love that.
So she really had the gumption. So this hearing was happening in like 1962. And Jerry Cobb and Jane Hart's, opening statements in their first day in Congress went beautifully. Like, really, the way that it's written, based off of the notes that I read, the congressional committee seemed like they were ready to side with the evidence that was being presented from the first two portions of the trial and, and their testimony. Well, the next day in walk Glenn and Scott Carpenter, who were those two astronauts, John Glenn and Scott Carpenter, and they just disparaged the whole thing. They basically stood by NASA's piece of, well, we would totally be willing to have a woman be an astronaut if she met all of the qualifications, but none of the women have the qualifications for jet hours, so they can't be considered, even though they're barred from being able to complete jet hours. So like completely glazing over that whole thing. He ends up, Christina, to what you were talking about earlier, he ends up again, John Glenn not painted as the best in any of these stories. I'm not really sure if he was just an asshole in real life or just through this lens, but he basically makes a joke at this congressional hearing that disparages the data. He's like, oh, he basically goes, yeah, my mom has had all these kids and she could pass the physical for the San Francisco 49ers, but that doesn't mean that she should be drafted by them to play in the NFL. and that everyone laughed and thought that it was so funny. And I was like, what? If she passed the physical fitness test, first of all, what is your fucking mom eating? Because like how's that happening? But like that's considered the joke, right? That's considered the joke.
You know
So
what? They probably didn't understand it either, but he was saying it and they were like, well, the astronaut said a joke. He thinks he's laughing. We have to laugh too.
and that's probably true. I mean, John Glenn had parades thrown in his honor. Like it was this big, he was considered to be a big fucking deal at this time. Like a household name, really a celebrity. So he comes in with Scott Carpenter. They just break all that shit. And so the next day, that's when Jackie Cochran's supposed to be coming in. Good old Jackie Cochran, who paid for and funded the program, who is close personal friends with Dr. Lovelace. She's godmother to his daughter. Like, they're all thinking, okay, here comes Jackie. She is going to save the day. Jackie surprises everybody and does not do that. She basically says that they need more time, that the country isn't ready for women in space, that the menstruation of women is going to pose a problem, and that they need to do more research and all of this stuff, and basically turns on the women and does her best to kill the program that she funded. Now, there's speculation as to why she did this because I don't know that they have any firsthand accounts, as Jackie Cochran is now dead. But basically, the thought is that she, her goal was to side with NASA on this hearing of we just need men to go into space, we just need male astronauts, so that she could then run a a true NASA funded program to create more women astronauts, right? So she was like thinking, if I sidle up to NASA now by killing this, they'll allow me the opportunity to do my own program through them because we're friends now, right? So like a little quid pro quo would be in the cards. Obviously, NASA didn't fucking do that because NASA doesn't do stuff like that, right? They just, take Nazi scientists and they deny women and they send animals up into space without thinking how they're going to land back down. So, you know, not the best plan by Jackie Cochran. And in one of the interviews for the pilots, they do say that she came to them personally and apologized and was talking about how embarrassed she was for her role in that. Um, Again, that's a hearsay account, but for what it's worth, she might have acknowledged it. So, this all ended up and culminated in a really awful way, um, in their entire program being squashed, right? And the women did what they could to continue to train, to hope for a reversal, but that just wasn't going to ever come. It wasn't going to be until 1978 for women to be finally selected as NASA astronauts, and that was because the Navy and the Air Force finally opened up in the 70s women's capability of going into the Air Force and the Navy and becoming pilots. So 1978 was the first year NASA even could select a female astronaut. And it wouldn't be until 1983 for Sally Ride to go up into space. Now, it would be another like 3 decades before a woman would man or fly that ship. There it would take quite a while for her to become any one of them to become a pilot. Not that there were that many. Out of the hundreds of people that have been in space, only 40 collectively have been women. So let that just sink in. Um, but they did what they could, and the Mercury 13 women led such a legacy and left such a legacy that it allowed the space for other women to come up the ranks and really push that gender norm. They, a lot of the women of Mercury 13 went when the first female pilot was going to fly, and they saw her launch, and they were on the in an amazing tw turn of events, the female astronaut who was going to be flying, and I'm sorry I can't remember her name right now, but she knew of the Mercury 13 women, so she invited them all to come to her launch. And when NASA found out, NASA was like, "Oh shit," and put them all on this like VIP list so they could get access to all of this stuff. But the only reason they were coming was because of this woman who knew their legacy and like attributed so much of her work to them. And I know, I'm sure a lot of you didn't see this. I personally tried not to watch any footage of that launch that Jeff Bezos did into the atmosphere, but of the women that was on that on the I don't know what they called it, the blue orbit, whatever the stupid name was for that, you know. One of them was Wally Funk of the Mercury 13. So she actually was able to, she didn't fly a plane, she wasn't up there in orbit, it wasn't very long, but she was able to fulfill that dream of hers to go to space in some way, shape, or form. So that was a really nice way for her to end it.
I kind of feel like, okay, this is controversial, but I kind of feel like she's the only one that I'm like, all right, maybe that one. I mean, I'm sure there are other people, but I feel like Katy Perry maybe like, why did you need to go to space?
I don't think
Yeah.
that's controversial at all. Like,
Like, I think this woman worked hard. She proved she could do it. If it wasn't a men's game, she could have had the opportunity legitimately through her own work. And I'm glad that she made it. It was endgame. I get it. Like I'm so proud of her and I'm so glad she finally made it out there. But like I think it's
And
different if you don't have anything else other than being super rich.
And and I think the other thing about this is that a lot of the women ended up doing cool things. Like one of the women, um, I mean, multiple of them became commercial pilots, but one of them like did a 90-day, 48 state continuous flight trip in order to launch this new aircraft. She like worked for this company. I can't remember the company name, of course, but because of the time, she and her other female pilot, because there were three of them and two of them were women, had to fly in heels and a dress. So for these 90 days they were like fully done up, like looking absolutely gorgeous with their hair done, and like they had these heels and they looked really cute in like their Marilyn Monroe dresses, and they're just climbing in these planes. I'm like, what is happening right now? But I mean, they were all just, again, so incredibly interesting in their own individual right.
I am very inspired and also once again annoyed I've never heard of them before today.
Yeah, same. Like that's super cool to hear. Like, I don't know, like you said, like I know it's frustrating that they couldn't be what they wanted to be, but I think it's still super cool that like they got to the point where they were at. But I'm sure whenever you said that they went to the launch of like the first female, I'm sure at that time, like whoever was working for NASA, they're probably kicking themselves.
For not thinking
You
about
know,
that, yeah.
yeah, you know.
But this is the same company who, when the woman most recently went into to orbit on a seventh-day mission, asked how many tampons she was going to need, if 100 was going to be enough.
Oh
oh, yeah,
my
I
goodness.
remember that.
For 7
They're
days,
like, I
NASA
have
was
no
like,
idea. I can calculate like the trajectory of a rocket, but like
but I can't Google how many tampons is used
how
during an
many?
average menstrual cycle. Beyond them.